What's up, my friends? Welcome back for another video. U.S. Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and today we're answering a question that maybe you have, maybe a question you have that you didn't know you have, but a lot more to this than just simply answering the question of what happens to an Army soldier if they get hurt while in the Army. And some of you may be thinking, oh, it's super easy. They get hurt, they go to the doctor, they recover, boom, we're done talking about this. Well, there is more to it. There's some things like long-term, there's short-term, there's all sorts of things, but that's what we're here for. We're here to explain to you about how things work in the United States Army, and this is no different. We're gonna talk about how it works when a soldier gets hurt. So let's dive right into it. Let's start off with, let's say a soldier gets injured, right? It could happen numerous ways, obviously, right? You could be in a training environment, you could be working in the motor pool, you could be doing whatever, and a soldier gets hurt. We're mainly gonna talk about like doing something Army related, like working in the field, on a deployment, working in the motor pool, whatever. I'll cover a little bit like what if a soldier gets hurt outside of, on duty, like they're just playing around with their friends or whatever, and they get injured. I'll briefly touch on that a little bit later, but let's first start off with things that are like work related, something that happens to you in the Army that causes you to get injured. So first thing happens, soldier gets injured. If they can wait until the next day, then that typically means they're gonna go to what is called sick call. Sick call is where you go see the medics. So this happens before physical fitness in the morning. So physical fitness happens at 6:30. A lot of times, it may fluctuate at the unit, but this sometimes means that, the soldier has to be there early to go to sick call. So they have to go and check in at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, may vary based on the unit. Get some kind of sick call slip from the unit to let them know. They have to sign out. That way, if they're not back in time for formation, the leadership knows that, hey, that individual is at sick call. They're not just gone AWOL or whatever. So they sign out, they get a sick call slip maybe if that's how it works, and then they go see the medics. Usually there's an aid station somewhere nearby. That's where your 68 whiskeys get involved, and then other individuals maybe too, but they're gonna go there and get evaluated by those individuals first. From there, those medics usually, do the basics, check the vitals, see what's going on, take some notes, whatever. Then there's usually a PA. They usually have some officer, or maybe, a higher enlisted individual. Kind of just depends on how they kind of work it at that specific aid station. But after that initial individual kind of does the initial examination, that other more trained, skilled individual comes in and does their own assessment. That individual makes an assessment as far as maybe if it's something that they can treat right there, they can take care of it, move on, or if that individual needs to escalate up to the hospital. They do have a hospital on base, so the soldier may have to either get a ride up there. If it's something serious enough, they need to give them a ride themselves or call for an ambulance, then they can do that as well if they need to. But from there, if need be, then a soldier might have to go to the hospital or just gets taken care of at the aid station and they move on with kind of the other steps that I'll talk about here a little bit more into it. Now, before we move on, this video is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. The Ridge Wallet is a great minimalist type of wallet for those individuals that are tired of carrying around that bulky foldable wallet and they just want to carry something slim and sleek just to put their credit cards, debit cards inside of, and maybe carry it around in your front pocket. The Ridge Wallet can hold up to 12 cards, and there's also room for cash on the back with either a money clip or a money band. There is a ton of different colors and designs that you can choose from. Right here, I have the gunmetal one, which looks pretty sleek, very kind of nice matte type of color, but you can choose from things like carbon fiber, black, a tiki kind of design, all sorts of awesome, amazing designs that are available on their site. So maybe you're down yourself. Maybe you're like, I don't know if the Ridge Wallet is for me. Well, lucky for you, they will let you test drive it for 45 days. If during that time frame you realize that this is not for you, you can get your full money back. They will also ship it back for free. So why not try it out? Just visit the website ridge.com/chaosarmy, and when you use the promo code chaosarmy at checkout, you can get up to 10% off. So check out that website down in the description box down below. I've also got a comment pinned for you to easily click on as well. Let's get back into the video, shall we? Now, if the injury is something that needs to be taken care of right away, can't wait until the next morning, a soldier can still go to the ER. There is an emergency room on the installation on the post, so they could go to that Army hospital on base. If they were off base, which we'll talk about some kind of non-Army related ones later, they can still go to the civilian ER and kind of go through the process there. And then when they ask for like health insurance, they just tell them that they're in the military and they kind of go through some processes there. So then the kind of same thing, right? If they're going through the ER because they couldn't wait until sick call the next day, then they go through the same process up at the hospital to get evaluated by a nurse, by a doctor, all that kind of stuff. So then either at that aid station, if it's something minor or whatever, it's taken care of there, or if it has to escalate to the hospital, things are taken care of there. So usually some kind of treatment kind of going on, whether it's not the aid station or the hospital, some kind of treatment goes on. Now, a lot of times that treatment could involve getting a profile. And what a profile is basically a documentation that states that, hey, this soldier has some limitations based on their injuries that the unit has to accommodate so that that soldier can heal properly. Based on that injury, it could depend on how long this profile lasts for, what kind of limitations are involved, especially if that escalated to something higher like surgery was required or something more extensive, then that profile could last a little while. It could be really limiting as far as what the soldier is allowed to do, but let's dive a little bit deeper into that profile part. So the profile will outline like the soldier's name, information, everything like that. And then it'll kind of state what their limitations are. Some common ones, maybe they can't run for 7 days, maybe they can't lift more than 45 pounds or whatever the case is, and then it kind of outlines a time frame as far as how long these limitations have to be in place. Usually when you come back and you have a profile, you have to make a copy of it so you can give it to your leadership. So the leadership has a copy of your profile, they put it in some kind of file and everything like that, and then kind of keep track of their profile individuals and their platoon, the company, all that kind of stuff, and then when the profiles are going to run out and what the limitations are of those profiles, so that way they can try to stay within standards as far as what the limitations as far as physical fitness in the morning or working in the motor pool or whatever the case might be. Before a soldier can go back to just resuming normal kind of functions, right? The profile is going to have an expiration date, and prior to that expiration date or on that expiration date, somewhere around that time frame, that soldier will have to go see probably the medics again or a doctor to get reevaluated, determine if yes, you're good to come off this profile, or do we need to extend it and give you a new profile that goes a little bit longer. So that evaluation has to go into place to make sure that everything healed properly, everything that was involved with your injury is good to go, and then they can remove that profile and then you're back to no limitations anymore. In some cases, if the injury is something that is going to affect you for the rest of your Army career, but not serious enough to prevent you from being able to do your job, then you could end up in a situation where you get what is called a permanent profile. Permanent profile is basically for the rest of your Army career, you can't do this, right? Some common ones I remember seeing in the Army was things like you can't run. So you can still do your push-ups, sit-ups, you can still lift weight and everything like that, but when it comes to running, you're very limited on what you can do, so you can't do runs, so you usually go and do like walking kind of exercises, I guess you can kind of say, with the other profile individuals when it comes to physical fitness in the morning. If the platoon is going to go for a run, when it comes time for the physical fitness test, you usually have an alternate event. Usually that involves like some kind of walking kind of event that also is still timed, and you still have to make it in that time frame, but you're not allowed to run during that time frame. Or you can have other alternate events like swimming and biking. Those ones are pretty rare. Usually you just get stuck with the walking kind of alternate event, and you have to make it within that time zone without running. Now, there are some limitations with like a permanent profile, right? If, like I said, it prevents you from being able to do your job, then it could go more serious to get like a medical chapter. If also this makes you non-deployable for more than a year, or a year or more actually, they could decide to take you out of the Army medically, so you could get a medical discharge if you're non-deployable for 1 year or more. Some of my old school veterans you may remember, and heck no, I remember guys that were non-deployable for years and stuff like that. This is more of a thing from like around 2017, I think it was, somewhere around there, that they came out with a new policy for the Army that states that no longer can soldiers be on profile that makes them non-deployable for more than 1 year. So this is a, within the last, 3-4 years type of time frame, new policy. So if it is something serious enough that it's going to prevent that soldier from being deployable, not being able to go to a combat zone, that kind of a thing, then the leadership can make a decision if they would like to just medically chapter this person out rather than holding on to him. Now, if this is an injury that reoccurs, right? Maybe you damage your knee and then it kind of just starts slowly coming back. You can still get it reevaluated. It's not like a one and done type of thing. If it's something that reoccurs, something that comes back, it gets re-injured, you just repeat the process, going back through the medics, going through the hospital, whatever the case is, and get the same process going of getting some kind of profile, getting some kind of treatment, whatever the case could possibly be. So these injuries need to be documented, because the Army will document everything into a medical file, and you'll have that medical file that goes with you when you go to another duty assignment, whatever the case is. Those medical files are, kind of transferred over. A lot of them are digital anyways nowadays, that are just in a database anyways, but all of that stuff gets documented because it's important for when you go to get out of the Army, whether that's you just done with your contract, you ETS, and you get out of the Army, or you stay in for 20 plus years and retire. The reason why it's important for this stuff to get documented is that this stuff goes towards documentation for the Veteran Affairs, for the VA office, so that way if you need to get seen for these kind of things when you get out of the Army, you can do so through the VA. So part of the process of getting out of the Army is submitting these documents to the VA. It's not a requirement, but most people, should kind of, consider submitting everything to get evaluated, but they're going to submit all their documentation, all of their medical records and everything to the VA for them to examine all of your injuries that you've received while you were on service in the Army. They're going to evaluate those injuries and give some kind of percentage to them. Even if you get something evaluated and they give you a 0%, that's still documenting it to state that this is service connected. And if it's something that, starts to bother you in the future, then, you can get reevaluated and maybe increase a rating. The ratings are important for considering, the type of compensation you're gonna receive. This is a monthly pension or monthly compensation they receive monthly for the rest of your life. It's also tax-free, but also there's a lot of other benefits based on the percentage you receive. Benefits for like college or DV plates for your disabled veteran license plates, or even certain states, grant special tax exemptions and everything. So those percentage ratings is more than just simply getting some money every month. They also can add up some other benefits depending on that rating. But also having even just a 0% rating, like I said, does make you qualified for treatment for that for free from the VA. So if you have something that is service connected, you can go see the VA, you can see them, yearly, monthly, whatever the case is, to get treatment for those kind of things, to get evaluated on that, and you can enroll in their healthcare kind of plan. It's more just for the VA hospital. You can't really use that outside of the VA hospital for like civilian hospitals, but it can be very beneficial. So if you're being seen for something that's service connected, that's free of charge. But even if you're going to see something that's not service connected, they can still treat you. And if it requires some medication or additional treatment, you sometimes pay a copay, and those copays are sometimes really small. Some copays I've seen for things that are not service connected, like $10 for maybe some prescription medication to take care of whatever it is you're trying to do, compared to, the civilian side of maybe having to pay $100 or $60 for those medications. So sometimes even just that is kind of a good benefit. Now back to that pension kind of a thing. If you have 10% or higher, that qualifies you for that pension. 0%, you don't get any money for that. Just as an example, if you had 10% for whatever it was, you were single, you don't have any children, none of that kind of thing, then 10% will actually get you roughly about $144 per month. Now, to actually 10% and 20% doesn't actually matter if you're married or single or have kids or whatever, because it's the same rate. It's not until after you get more than 20%, then it does start factoring in if you're married or have children. As another example, if you were really messed up, it's kind of hard to get 100%, but if you did have that high of a rating because of some really serious injuries or whatever, 100% as a single individual, that's roughly like $3,100 and something. And this does fluctuate from year to year. So this does change, 2021, and then you go to 2022 and it may increase slightly a little bit. Also, like I said, it does increase a little bit if you're married or you have children. So if you are married with no children compared to married with like 5 children, then it's definitely a difference. Now let's dive into it a little bit if it's not service connected. So if you were just out with your buddies playing football and you got injured, technically, that's not something that could help you towards getting, some kind of percentage or some kind of disability. But the tricky thing with that is sometimes that's hard to track. So if you messed up your knee because you're playing football, you're going to go see the doctor for that if you need to, or the medics or whatever. I don't think anywhere in the documentation is going to say that this injury was because of playing football. And I may be wrong on that, but I've seen a lot of people where they've gotten injured because of something, but then it still ends up being service connected because they just assume that the bad knee is because of being in the Army for 8 years, 6 years, whatever the case was. If some of you veterans have seen things like that where they do document why they're injured, and if it was something outside of service connected type of thing, then it kind of prevented them from disability kind of things, let me know in the comment section down below. But I've seen other cases too where people have injured themselves in a non-work environment type of related thing, but then it's gotten kind of worse in the Army, so they just kind of tie it together anyway. So maybe they had a bad knee from a football injury, but then just doing things in the Army made it worse, so they just gets tied into the Army anyways. Also, technically, if you got injured outside of the work environment, outside of being on duty, and it was for something, like, you got drunk and you fell down the stairs, or you were getting in a fight with someone, things you were not supposed to do, you can get in trouble for those kind of injuries. I've always heard like the story, like you get sunburn, that's destruction of government property, so they can Article 15 you for destruction of government property for having a sunburn. I don't think I've ever seen anybody get an Article 15 for a sunburn. I've seen people get counseled for really bad sunburns that prevented from doing things until they recovered, and they had to, get a counseling for that. And if they repeated that and something happened again in that situation, then maybe they got Article 15. But I don't know if I've actually seen anybody actually get an Article 15 for a sunburn. Other things, I can see it happening, right? If you got drunk and you got in an accident, you were drunk and you fell down the stairs and you're just being, kind of reckless or whatever, or you got in a fight with someone and you got injured from that, then yeah, I could probably see someone getting Article 15 for those kind of things. So it also depends on the leadership, right? If they want to push for that. So it just kind of depends. I'm curious for my viewers out there, maybe currently in the military, maybe some veterans out there, what kind of profiles did you have? I'm sure there's some of you that had like a ton of profiles. Maybe you were the sick call ranger, right? You went to sick call all the time, whatever the case was. Me, I think my 10 years of being in the Army, I think I only had a profile twice. I remember the first profile I ended up on was because I was in an Army truck delivering some parts on base and a car ran into the side of my truck. I was fine, but for precautionary reasons, they stuck me on a 1 week or 2 week profile of no PT. That way you can kind of evaluate me to make sure that I was okay, I guess. And then the second time I was in the National Training Center, we were unloading a vehicle and somebody wasn't paying attention when they were throwing stuff out of the vehicle, and an ether bottle, it's this big metal container that contains ether inside of it for helping the vehicle start during the cold weather. That went flying out and hit me on top of the head, and I ended up having to get a couple stitches from that. I had like a profile of like no PT for I think a week or something. I think I also got like no headgear for like a day or two or something. So nothing kind of crazy, but I remember those are the only two profiles I ever had in the 10 years I was in the Army. Now, if you would like to learn a little bit more about sick call, I did a video a couple years back or something like that about sick call because I was sick at the time and I figured it would be a great time to kind of cover it. Check that video right here if you want to see how that kind of works for sick call. If you haven't seen my latest video upload, check it out. I got a convenient locator right here. Check out links down in the description to include that link to ridge.com. Thanks so much for watching. Like the video. I'm Christopher Chaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.